I have been traveling like crazy and I'm so excited because I'm updating my Take Me Out of Office app to put in all of my recs for the cities that I've recently visited. I just got back from the south of France and had the best time. I basically ate my entire way through France, so I will definitely be putting some of those restaurant recommendations in the app and you'll thank me later. But I also have added other cities I've traveled to and all the things that I did that are worth sharing. I love this app because it is so aesthetically pleasing and it's the perfect way to plan trips with friends. You can make itineraries, look at other people's trip plans, recommendations. You can actually book hotels through it and feel prepared before you take off. So if you want to download the app, I actually have a unique link that you can use to download the app for free. All you have to do is head to the show notes, tap on the unique link, and download the app. You can follow me by typing in my name, Veronica Droulia, VeronicADroulia. I should pop up. And yeah, all you have to do is head to the show notes, download the app. Hello, and welcome back to Martinis and Bikinis. I am your hostess, Veronica Droulia. Today we have a super interesting episode. I always love having therapists on the show because I feel like I learn so much, not just about myself, but how we structure our relationships with others, why certain people in our life are the way that they are, and how we can really start to find that self-awareness and overall awareness to better ourselves and our environment. So today we have on Natalie Jambazian, who is the face of Self-Love Society. She's a licensed marriage and family therapist, as well as a self-love and narcissistic abuse recovery coach. She is so incredibly well-versed in the subject, and it was super cool to learn more about what makes someone a narcissist, because we all know that that's a really popular buzzword right now, and people are just kind of throwing it around. So we got really deep into what it actually is and how you can spot it in your own relationships. And Natalie just wrote a book called Detoxing from a Narcissist. So we are going to chat all about that. And I can't wait for you guys to meet her. So without further ado, my little teenies, please welcome Natalie to Martinis and Bikinis. Hello, and welcome to Martinis and Bikinis, the podcast for everything under the sun. I am your hostess, Veronica Droulia, and I am here to help you navigate your 20s through all things lifestyle, beauty, and fashion. So, if you're ready, let's dive into today's episode. We have our element drinks here. We were told that they were really salty.
Yeah.
I feel like we should try them together.
I feel like you should try it. Tell me how it is.
Let's see. Let's pop her open. Wow. It's salty. It's really salty, but
is it good for you?
I can definitely taste the electrolytes. I would say it's probably good for you. I think Element is a great brand, but
I wonder why it's salty though.
I guess because of the electrolytes, there's a lot of salt in it, but it's sweetened with stevia, so no sugar, like normal sugar.
It's not as salty as I expected it to be.
No, it's pretty good.
Cheers.
Cheers. Natalie, welcome to Martinis and Bikinis.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
I'm excited to have you because I feel like we have a lot to talk about.
Yeah. I felt like, should I bring my bikini and are we having martini? Like, I was like, should I? What's the deal?
I've always wondered if I should do these poolside with bikinis on, martini glasses.
I think you should.
Lounging by a pool.
Yes, I'm there.
Okay, we'll do that next time.
Okay, great.
Next time I'm here, we're going to have to do that.
That sounds good.
We'll rent out a pool.
Okay, yeah.
We'll source a pool.
Good idea.
But I am just so incredibly excited to have a conversation with you because you are just full of energy and knowledge, and you have written a book. And I am just like so incredibly impressed with all of the amazing things that you're doing. And before we get into the book, I would love to hear more just about you. So I usually like to start these episodes with something I like to call the roots. Okay. So this could be where you're from, how you got to where you are today, maybe some things people don't know about you. Just feel free to share your story and whatever you're willing to share with the audience.
Thank you. That's a really great question. I'm actually Armenian American. So I was born and raised here, but my background is Armenian. My parents are Armenian. So I really come from like an immigrant family. You learn a lot from them coming from like a country that didn't have anything, and then really making a living for themselves, and then, you know, really providing for their kids. So I think just being here and seeing my book and seeing how happy my parents are and so proud is everything to me. Something that people don't know about me. Well, speaking of about the book, I also have been in a narcissistic relationship.
Wow.
So let's just get it out there.
Yeah, I was going to ask you that.
Yeah, I was in a relationship with a narcissist. Maybe it was like 2 narcissists in my life.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, and the last one was just like the cherry on top. So I think the fact that I've also experienced it, I really understand what survivors go through makes a big difference. I guess something different about me or unique about me and what I love and what I enjoy is I actually read psychological thrillers.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Tell us more. Like, what's an example?
It's really fun. So one of the books that I really like is Frida McFadden. And she has a book called like The Therapist or The Housemaid's Secret. And that's kind of a way to just help me check out. It's one of my like self-care routines. It's just a really great way to check out. And it's fun. It's something fun to do.
Yeah, I love that because I feel like I've gotten into the whole fairy fantasy world.
Yeah.
I like have to pivot to something else because I am constantly talking about it now and I just need like a different genre. So I'm gonna have to look into that.
It's
That's
cool.
super
I like
fun.
it. Yeah.
So I would love to know how you got into being a therapist and what inspired you to go this route, because I feel like it's really interesting to have a career where you are providing advice and comfort and a safety environment for people that are struggling with really difficult things.
Yeah. Yeah, I think like there's a mental health crisis,
Yeah,
you know,
for sure.
nowadays in the world, but there's so much more awareness now than it was before. I think the stigma is definitely changing. I didn't realize after COVID how busy I was going to get.
Yeah.
I guess there's a pro to that, right? People are seeking therapy now. There isn't as much shame around it. So how I started was I feel like I've always been an empath and I've always, you know, been a people pleaser, which had its pros and cons, mostly cons. And I just really wanted to help people. I know that sounds cliche, but I felt like there was a calling for me. I actually used to work in the entertainment industry.
No way. What did you do?
I was a personal assistant to a celebrity.
Wow.
Yeah,
Oh
I
my
think I can
gosh.
say her name. It's not like it's an NDA. This was like
Yeah,
20
tell us
years
who.
ago. It was Paris Hilton. I know.
Wait, stop it right now.
Yeah, she
Natalie,
was.
I am freaking out because I always tell people that if there's one celebrity that I would fangirl over, it's Paris
Really?
Hilton.
I don't really talk about it because it feels like a lifetime ago and it was 20 years ago. I was probably like 21.
Oh my
Yeah.
gosh.
So it was a wild experience. One of the best memories I've had. It was a wonderful opportunity. She was amazing. You know, we hear a lot in the entertainment industry about like bosses and stuff. She was like the coolest boss, so empathetic, so kind, so loving, generous. You know, it was just like really, really fun to be with like her assistant. It just, you know, she was really incredible to me
Yeah.
and she treated me really well. So I was really grateful for that experience.
That's so good to hear.
But I feel like I noticed some mental health issues like in the entertainment industry.
For sure.
So I picked up on a lot and I was like, I really need to just go back to school and finish my graduate program. I felt like it's not exactly where I belong as an assistant. I just knew there was something else out there for me, my calling. And so I went back to school. I got my master's, I got my license, and you know, going through a narcissistic relationship also helped me find my niche. And, you know, it allowed me to help a lot more people out there that have experienced the same toxic dynamic as I have. And here I am.
Absolutely. That's incredible. I think it's great that you pivoted into a whole different career path because I
Yeah.
think it takes a really strong and brave person to be able to do that. I know so many people that are so unhappy in their current situations or their
Yeah, me
careers
too.
and they are scared to take that leap into something new. So I think that just takes like a very resilient and cool person to be able to do that.
Thank you.
So
Thank you.
Congrats.
Thanks so much.
But I would love to just learn more about what a narcissist is, because I feel like we hear that word a lot.
Yeah.
Do you feel like it's overused in some scenarios? Because obviously from like a clinical perspective, there are certain traits that a narcissist has. Mm-hmm. And I feel like if we kind of define what that is, people will have more of an idea of what that person is and if maybe they're seeing signs of that in people in their own lives.
Yeah, definitely. I definitely think that it's like misused and overused, like you said. It's a buzzword nowadays.
I know.
And not everybody is a narcissist. Just because one person gaslighted you, that doesn't make them a narcissist. And it kind of diminishes what survivors go through.
Yeah.
And their experience. So I think it's really important to be careful of who you call someone a narcissist. And one of the key factors of knowing and finding the red flags is when someone is consistently toxic. It's not just like, you know, your partner gaslighted you once or twice subconsciously. It's someone who gaslights you like every single conversation. And it's so consistent to the point that you are questioning your reality and your perceptions. Someone who is pathological liar, but consistently lies. Mm-hmm. And someone who is feeling entitled and selfish, but it's consistent. They are who they are. That's their personality trait. Now, the thing about narcissistic personality disorder is that not every narcissist has that disorder. Mm-hmm. They can have specific traits like pathological liars, they're charming, they're entitled, they're selfish, they're manipulative, but they don't have to have narcissistic personality disorder to be a narcissist.
I see.
So it's just characteristic traits.
Right. And I actually saw this article that you wrote in Yahoo about Miley Cyrus.
Oh, yeah.
And she talks about how she developed a lot of narcissistic qualities from watching her dad while she was growing up.
Yeah.
And I think that's interesting that somebody can also have like narcissistic qualities and may not necessarily be a full-blown narcissist.
Right.
Do you think that that's something that we all kind of have to an extent that we unfortunately just develop from maybe watching our parents or maybe having a bad relationship that, you know, wasn't very positive?
Yes, I do think that you can kind of pick up on those narcissistic characteristics from parents, and mm-hmm. and that's how narcissists become narcissists, right? They're modeled. It's modeled behavior, or they were, you know, sexually, emotionally, physically abused mm-hmm. or abandoned and neglected by their parents. So that's why they become narcissists. But I think like most teenagers and kids are narcissistic. You know, it's like me. And,
right.
You know, I want to do what I want to do. I just think that you either grow out of it or you don't. Mm-hmm. And it just kind of stays with you. So I do think there has been some narcissistic traits, you know, like in my 20s, I thought I was cool and I was an assistant and I did whatever I wanted to. I still think that I had empathy. You know what I mean? I still think that I cared a lot for other people consistently. I was very empathetic. So I do think we can come out of it, but some people just like it gets worse for them.
Yeah, it's interesting how different scenarios in life kind of lead us to maybe a greater purpose, or sometimes it can be really debilitating for us from a personal growth standpoint. I was actually talking to a friend last night about this, about, you know, whenever people have a lot of success or something goes their way or there's all these accolades happening in their life, there can be this inflated sense of ego that occurs.
Sure.
And I always say that I think the most attractive thing is humility and just being able to be grounded. And it's just so interesting how like success and all of those like very materialistic things can lead people into that direction too.
Yeah, I think a lot of people fall on the ego, and even in relationships, right? If like your ego gets in the way, it might not work out. You know, that's how divorce happens.
Right.
Their ego comes in and they just want, you know, to hurt the other person. And that's why relationships sometimes don't work, because people just don't know how to be vulnerable, or they're scared of being vulnerable.
Exactly. So I'd love to hear more about your experience, if you feel comfortable, with dating a narcissist and how you kind of started to see the big picture and come out stronger.
Yeah, I did a lot of therapy.
Yeah. Good.
I did a lot of therapy that helped me a lot. I love to talk about my story. I used to feel a bit embarrassed and shameful to talk about it because I was like, oh, what if my ex sees it? What if like the partner, like, you know, I just didn't want to put anyone down, but it's my story. And you know, it's going to help a lot of people. So how did it start? The irony, right? Because I was a therapist. I was still in school. I was collecting my hours. And yeah, and I was, you know, attracted to his intelligence and charm and charisma. I wouldn't say that he was my type. I feel like the relationship just took off like a roller coaster. And it was just like a carousel ride that I just couldn't get out of. You know, it was just like round and round, and it was like a cycle. So the irony is the fact that like I'm a therapist. I guess you know, they say you should have known better, but you really don't know unless if like you're in it. And when you're in it, time flies so bad. You look back and you're like, what the hell just happened? What just happened? Like I'm stuck in a toxic cycle. So the first time I was like aware that he was a narcissist is my therapist pointed it out.
Whoa.
Yeah. And everything just like light bulbs flashing. Everything just started making sense. And I just started doing the research because they don't teach you narcissism in school. They really don't. It's just like they just flip through the book. They don't really talk about it as the disorder. Because when you talk about personality disorders, there's like bipolar, borderline, but never narcissism. So I learned the hard way. I was in it and it felt too late for me. But at the same time, I was really aware of it. And I think that was like some sort of empowerment. There was an empowering factor to that as I did the research and as I like navigated that with my therapist. It still was really hard to get out of it. I think I was like 1 foot in and 1 foot out. And I feel like the love bombing was just like sucking me back in.
Yeah, I feel like love bombing is something that we hear a lot too. And I think sometimes people can be really blinded by it and they have this very whirlwind romance movie situation and they think it's just this once in a lifetime thing, soulmate connection. And I think that real life is so much more logical than that. And developing an equal partnership is definitely grounded on being logical. So what are your tips to people that, you know, have experienced love bombing, or what are some signs that they can kind of watch out for to make sure that they don't participate in something like that?
I feel like there's different types of narcissists. Some narcissists, when they love bomb, they take you on like extravagant trips or they buy you extravagant gifts. Or on the other spectrum of it is where someone might just like leave, you know, love letters and, you know, they're very charming and they're very loving and they're just so exciting. You know, they're very spontaneous. You just never know, you know, what the day is going to look like because you might go on a road trip with them. So there's this like dopamine level that shoots up during the love bombing phase. And I feel like the more you're in it, the more you're like wanting that adrenaline rush and the hit of that dopamine levels. So I guess the sign to look out for is when someone's like doing too much in the beginning, because it's kind of like grooming. They groom you in to isolate you and to control you.
Yeah, that's an interesting way to put it because I've never really heard about, you know, people explaining it in that manner of, okay, when people are love bombing you, they are grooming you for whatever their purpose for you is. And yeah, that's like super interesting.
Yeah.
But yeah, going back to narcissism, I think it's really interesting that you mentioned that a lot of it has to do with like your childhood and your family. What are some ways that can lead to narcissism? Because I've seen on your page you talk a lot about like being the golden child and situations like that. What are some other examples of that?
So like I mentioned before, there's a couple of reasons. Like one of them is the golden child where their parents put them on a pedestal and they just continue bringing them higher and higher.
Right.
And it's not just them. When they get older, their friends put them on a pedestal. Depending on their profession too, I think like, you know, I don't
know who we're talking about.
Yeah, like depending on their profession too. Like my ex is a doctor, and so like, you know, there's the ego, there's the charismatic nature, there's the entitlement. There's like this godlike.
It's like athletes too.
Yeah,
that's what I was thinking of.
Yeah, it could be anybody.
Right.
Honestly,
there's so many great professions out there.
Yeah, it could be anybody. There's like really wonderful empathetic doctors, you know, but then there's non-empathetic ones. But, you know, I just feel like when they're the golden child and they're put on a pedestal, they're kind of put on a pedestal for the rest of their lives. People look up to them. And you know what? They're intelligent. So one thing that sucked me in, I was thinking, oh, he's a doctor. You know, I come from immigrant families, and they, you know, oh my God, like if I'm not going to be a doctor, then like I'm going to marry one. So there's this cultural dynamic and aspect to that, which was very toxic. It was a toxic belief, I think, that I grew up with that didn't really help me. So it was this like illusion of the idea of this kind of relationship rather than like the actual reality of what was really happening to me in that relationship. The other part of it is when they've been sexually or emotionally, physically abused, abandoned, or even like rejected by their parents. They actually grow up to become narcissistic because they put like this mask on of, you know, I'm okay. You know, I'm better than everybody else, because deep down inside, they're really, really insecure. So they kind of like manipulate people to get into relationships with them, or, you know, if they don't work, they kind of suck people into the relationship for them to get, I don't know, like to find like a comfortable space for them. Like it just depends on their needs that they didn't get when they were younger.
Yeah. Do you feel like narcissists ever know that they're a narcissist? Did they ever find out or realize?
No.
Yeah.
No. They really truly believe that they are not the narcissist. They believe everybody else is, excluding them.
That's kind of crazy.
Yeah.
I'm curious, how do you exit a relationship with a narcissist? As somebody that has ended a relationship with a narcissist, I think that would be really beneficial for people that kind of have that aha moment and realize, okay, this is a relationship that isn't suiting me. How do I move forward?
It takes time. It takes patience. It takes forgiving yourself, because it's not as easy as like having closure, leaving a relationship and feeling okay about it. You know, breaking up, we kind of like listen to music, right? Like after a breakup, it's like, what do? We listen to music, we eat ice cream, like we get over it that way, right? But leaving a narcissistic relationship is not easy, because they suck you back in. And even if you get out, like you're like, okay, this is not working for me, they somehow love bomb you. They love bomb you by like sending you cute little, you know, text messages or pictures to remind you of the good days. And you're right in the relationship, right back to where you started. So I guess one of the things is like not being judgmental to people who are still dealing with a relationship like that, and not judging yourself for doing it, because it takes time.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel like it might be hard for somebody to decipher whether or not this person is a narcissist if they're constantly breadcrumbing them. And there is this romantic level of involvement. So how do you know how to separate the two? Like, oh, okay, this is a really great person. I'm so excited to potentially be romantically involved with this person. Or, you know, do I have to be on high alert and be like really cautious and make sure that I'm like not going to get hurt? You know, I feel like there's like this weird like boundary, you know, that people need to be careful of.
That's a really good point. I guess my answer would be to listen to your instincts. We all have a gut. We all have instincts that we don't listen to most of the time.
No, we never do.
You know, if something doesn't feel good, it probably isn't. If something is making you feel sick to your stomach, it probably is an issue. I really do feel like instincts play a role. And if you can listen to it, if you can ask yourself, like, is this right for me or is this wrong for me? And if you find the answer to be it's wrong, the best thing you can do is cut off all ties with that person, even if you have to block them. A no contact rule, I that's something that I have in my book. It kind of holds you accountable because the more you maintain no contact, the more your brain rewires itself to be in your own reality.
Right.
You know, because when you're in a narcissistic relationship, you're kind of hypnotized.
Yeah.
You're in their reality. You're in their story. You're in their perception of how they see the world. It's not real. It's not true. So when you're out of a relationship, I always say it's like detoxing, right? It's like people who are addicted to alcohol or drugs, it takes like 30 to 90 days to detox. So you kind of go through the cravings in the beginning. So the more you maintain no contact, the more your brain rewires itself, and it becomes easier to just not think about this person.
Yeah. So when you're dating a narcissist, or you have an inkling that there is a narcissist in your life,
Yeah.
I'm sure a lot of people want to change this person and maybe hope that there's a better future for them. Do you think a narcissist can actually change?
Good question. It's a yes and no.
Okay.
There are narcissists that are like higher on the spectrum, almost like sociopathic. Really, very psychopathic, sociopathic, manipulator, liar, controller. They won't change. It actually gets worse over time because it's like this brain issue that they have where now people are doing research on what's happening in the narcissistic brain where, you know, they lack empathy.
Yeah.
And they're part of the brain. It's something about the mass. I don't want to get into too much science, but they're like the mass is like smaller inside their brain.
Right.
And they can't function by having empathy. So it actually gets worse. And we don't have medication for narcissists.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
So it just gets worse
ask.
over time.
Yeah, I was going to ask if there's like a way to study the brain, like scan it or something.
There
where
is.
You can see, okay, yeah, this person's a narcissist.
Yeah, they're doing research right now. Obviously, it's going to take some time to build on that, but it's new research that's showing that there is something in the brain that is like they're lacking, or the mass is like smaller than like normal brains, and so it just gets worse over time for them. If they're lower on the spectrum and they're kind of sensing, you know, like how much they hurt someone, or if they hit rock bottom. Whatever rock bottom looks like for them, they might, you know, wake up and say, I need to do something to change my life. I think that's the only way someone can change their behavior.
Yeah. I think self-awareness is so big.
It really is.
I think that's what therapy is so great for. Somebody that's gone through so many different modalities of therapy and had many talk therapists. I realized at the end of the day, the most important aspect that taught me is just self-awareness. And I guess that's something that a lot of narcissists lack.
Yep.
But you're a family and marriage therapist, but your specialty is within narcissism or narcissistic tendencies and behaviors.
Yeah.
What are some signs that your parents are narcissists?
Good one. So one of the signs is like when you tell your parent, hey, you know, like you made me feel sad. So they turn around and say like, you've made me feel sad. So they kind of like shift the blame onto you and they don't take accountability or responsibility. That's number one. Number two is I would say when they kind of like devalue you or like, is that what you're wearing? You sure you want to wear that? Or they comment on your weight, or they comment on your looks. I think that's another telltale sign that a parent is narcissistic.
Yeah.
And they could be selfish. It's all about them. They don't take responsibility, accountability for your feelings. They're very selfish. It's all about them.
I would also like love to know like what signs people can look for like an emotionally draining partner, or even like a connection, like whether it's a friendship or even a family member, because I feel like my favorite thing right now is like avoiding emotional vampires and just protecting my peace. So what are like some signs that people are just like drained from like their connections and their relationships?
Yeah. When they're always wanting to hang out with you.
Yeah.
Like constantly.
Like leeching on.
Yeah. They're kind of codependent, and they just always like they get mad when you're hanging out with friends. That's like, I would say, a big red flag, because this person has a hard time setting boundaries or accepting boundaries. I think boundaries should be respected in any relationship. And I think that a draining relationship could look like, someone who just doesn't like respect your own identity and questions it and like criticizes it. Oh, you're hanging out with friends all the time. You're traveling all the time. You want to be with someone who like honors you and accepts you for who you are.
Yeah, I think just like having supportive people in your life is so important, and kind of weeding out the people that aren't supporting you, because
and friendships too, right?
Yeah, people would be surprised how many people are not on your side. There's a lot of people that are jealous or insecure or are friends with you for the wrong reasons.
Right.
And I think sometimes it's hard for people to see that. But I like had an experience with like a friendship that was like emotional,
Draining.
vampire draining. And, I think it's all about like setting boundaries and stepping into friendships that make you feel like really replenished and supported and good, and that you can also give that energy to them. And I think it's like a win-win once you kind of like develop that structure for the people that you allow into your life.
Yeah, I agree. I think as your self-awareness grows, you're going to realize that like you're going to let go of certain people in your life that's not meant to be there. And that's okay too.
Yeah, friend breakups are honestly sometimes way more difficult than actual breakups. And I always talk about this with my friends, but I think as you get older, you realize that that's unfortunately something that everybody goes through at some point in time, because we're all entering into new chapters, new phases of life. Maybe you're moving, maybe you're getting married, maybe there's like this very big shift in your life. And sometimes those people aren't coming along with you. And I think that's okay. There's like peace in that too. But yeah, I think in terms of family, as a family therapist, do you think that it's okay for people to like not necessarily be close with their family?
I mean, I've had clients where they've literally gone no contact and just like blocked their parent.
Wow.
And they're just so much better off, and that's okay too. But then there's people who like, clients who really want to work through that. I think it's just accepting your parent for who they are, knowing that you're not probably going to get the mom that you wanted or hoped for, or the dad who is going to be there for you and, nurture you. So I think when you accept that reality, you're going to be able to like learn tools and techniques. Nothing you do is ever going to be good enough for them. So you just continue setting boundaries and choosing yourself at the end of the day.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think it's interesting that you pointed out that, our parents aren't always going to be perfect. And there's this quote that I love, and I'm probably going to butcher it a little bit, but just like we're adults for the first time, or maybe we're a student for the first time, our parents are also parents for the first time. And I think that's given me a lot of peace in like my own childhood.
Yeah.
Because I just realized that we're all human trying to navigate this crazy, chaotic world. And whenever you kind of put this innocence on your family and your parents, it gives you like a whole different perspective.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, even like my background, or like my parents are immigrant families, and like there's generational trauma, right? That's passed down, what my mom believed growing up. Like she came from nothing, so, and she made it herself from the ground up. So yeah, I think just finding that compassion towards like their experience can also help navigate what the relationship looks like with your parents.
Absolutely. And I think attachment theory is really interesting too, whenever it comes to parenting styles and how you develop as an adult.
Yes.
Because I have had a lot of friends that have confided in me about maybe having like some maternal issues, whether that's like maybe their mom didn't respect them, or maybe their mom was always really harsh on them, or was a little emotionally distant. And those people have like an anxious attachment style. And it's interesting how you can kind of like pair those similarities with their upbringing into who they are today and how they function in their relationships.
Exactly. I actually have a quiz in my book to identify what your attachment style is.
No way.
Yeah. I work with my clients on attachment too. It's in the book. I kind of describe like what it is. And if you do have anxious attachment, what does that look like? I do think anxious attached people are the people pleasers. So I definitely work with clients on that. And I think they're the ones who attract narcissists.
Yeah. I'm anxious avoidant.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
I'm a mix of all of it, which is not good, but working on it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think we all need to work on ourselves. And I think being, again, self-aware and knowing what your attachment style is like the first step. But I would love to talk more about your book. So let's say I was sitting down and may or may have not had an experience with a narcissist. What would this book teach me, and how would I cultivate it into my day-to-day life?
I love the 12 stages that I created because I think that's like a unique perspective. You know, there's a lot of books out there on narcissism, on codependency, on people pleasers, but this book is like something that holds you accountable for your own self-healing and for your own understanding when it comes to narcissists. So the 12 stages kind of is like it guides you to get to a place of like empowerment and self-love. So it starts off like understanding narcissism. And I think that we have a little bit of an idea of what that looks like, but it's basically someone who has been in a narcissistic relationship, who's currently in a narcissistic relationship, who has kids with a narcissist, so it really reflects on like different types of people who are just dealing with a narcissist, right? Or a narcissistic parent.
Right. It's interesting that you bring up codependency, because I actually read this book forever ago, and it's like very well known in like the codependency world, but it's called Codependent No More. Melanie Beattie. Yeah. And I feel like everybody's been reading that since like it came out. I think it was like the 80s or something.
Yeah.
Or the 90s. Like it was a while ago. But yeah, it's definitely like really interesting because it talks a lot about substance use and like people that are in AA and wives of people that are in AA and like how they can support them, or it's very interesting. I think that this is definitely a book that people needed because it doesn't seem like there was really anything out there in regards to narcissism and how you can kind of overcome it and detox from it. So you kind of created this monopoly, which is awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I know. I thank you so much, because the reason why I did exercises is because I recognize, like, when working with my clients are like, what do I do in the meantime when I'm not in therapy? So I think this is really great for, people. It's kind of like this companionship to have, having the book, going to the beach, like it's kind of a journal, a book, and like extras, like a workbook all in one.
Yeah. So besides doing like the journal and the workbook, what are some other like self-care, just I guess modalities that people can utilize to kind of come down from their connections or relationships with narcissists? What do you recommend to your clients?
So one of the things that I think people should be aware of is when, like, even when you come out of a narcissistic relationship, your cortisol level is really high. So you're very anxious at all times. You kind of like go through ups and downs with your moods. You're kind of going through a grieving stage, which there's the stages of grief. You're sad, you're in shock, you're sad. There's denial, there's anger, there's the bargaining stage of looking back and thinking, could I have done something differently? What if he wasn't a narcissist? What if she wasn't like this, And then it's the acceptance part. So one of the things I always say is like connect to nature. One of the most healing aspects for me was like traveling with my friends, like going to Tulum. Tulum was like my sanctuary, my healing space, where, I did meditation. I was bike riding everywhere. I was like hanging out with friends and just taking my journal and being by the ocean. So I just feel like take yourself out, take yourself on a date, go traveling, connect with nature, do anything that will distract yourself from the time that you need to focus on yourself.
Right. I was having a conversation with a friend recently just about how we don't really need romantic relationships. If you can connect with yourself like so thoroughly, it's just kind of an added bonus whenever you do meet someone that you are attracted to and have a good connection with. I think once you have that sense of self and that independence, it's like so empowering, and it helps you to go into future relationships with like a new pride of like who you are and what you were able to accomplish. So I guess my question for you is, how did you repair your view towards relationships after being with a narcissist? And how are you looking at relationships now? And yeah, I think it's interesting because a lot of people that are having that high cortisol level and kind of chasing this high, I'm sure those are people that are constantly kind of looking for relationships that are hard to get, or maybe it's like this thrilling experience of like trying to win this person over. So I know that was like literally 5 questions in one, but I would love to hear your thoughts on all of that.
No, I was visualizing I'm such a visual person. I was just like visualizing everything. I think there's a thrill in this cat and mouse chase of like, are they going to text me back, or did they ghost me? Or should I text them? And, this back and forth anxiety thing. But in a healthy relationship, you're not going to be questioning the other person or having as much anxiety, because the other person is going to show consistency, going to show transparency. They're going to be vulnerable. They're going to be honest and forward with you.
Yeah. Do you think that sometimes with a narcissist, it looks like too good to be true sometimes at first?
Yeah, that's another thing that I would say. That's another thing that I would say that is like a red flag.
Yeah.
If it's too good to be true, it probably is.
Yeah. That's wild. Well, that's terrifying.
Yeah.
But yeah, I guess it's interesting that these people are like chasing this high. And I think what you said earlier about like trusting your gut instincts is really important. And I think people don't really do that often, including myself. Sometimes I turn a blind eye because I'm just like, oh.
Well, good news is like when you have self-awareness, you're better able to kind of decipher the toxic, people that you date versus the non-toxic one. The good news is that, there's hope, because even though you've been in a narcissistic relationship, that doesn't mean that you're broken or you're not going to find a healthy relationship. I'm in a healthy relationship now.
Oh my gosh.
So, I mean, there's hope for sure. And once you kind of work through your past trauma, you'd be able to find comfort in a healthy relationship and attract that for you.
Absolutely. I feel like a lot of people probably confuse like cheaters with narcissists. Do you think like all cheaters are narcississists?
No.
Yeah.
No, I think there's cheaters. Like, I think, there's people who cheat and they regret it, and, they regret it for the rest of their lives, so they have guilt.
They constantly live with.
They have guilt.
Yeah.
So no, not all cheaters are narcissistic. It's only if they continue cheating.
Yeah. And like don't have like any sort of empathy for that other person. It's so funny. I feel like I'm such an empath. I was saying this.
You are. I was just going to say that. You really are an empath.
Well, I feel like a lot of people pleasers probably are, but I had this guest and she was talking about how she got hives, and I literally started itching. And
she got high?
She got hives. Like hives. She was like talking about a story from like getting hives like a few days before, and I was like literally itching as she was telling me.
Oh my gosh.
I was like, something is wrong with me. Like, this is too much. But yeah, I think empathy is so big. And I think whenever you can spot that somebody doesn't have that, that's like obviously a very major red flag.
It is.
But I think like dating is just so awkward. I always say that, especially at first, because like you don't know if that person's like dating other people. Like,
Yeah.
you don't know like how to necessarily navigate this new connection. I think it's just so incredibly awkward.
I think it's just, you know what? I think the fact, like, people just don't want to get vulnerable and don't want to be open because they're scared, like, okay, I don't want to be too forward. I don't want to be not too forward. I don't know what to do. How do I navigate this? And one of the things I think is important to do is write down your values because you want to attract someone that align with your values, not just like looks, but values, you know, like I want somebody who's empathetic. I want somebody who, you know, holds accountability and responsibility for their actions. So when I wrote that list down, I feel like I attracted someone very similar to that list. And I really do think, and I would say, like, not to self-abandon. Don't abandon yourself and be like, oh, I can work with this. No, stick to your values. And if they're not like the person for you, you let them know, hey, I'm looking for something else.
Right. I have a husband list.
You have a husband list?
I do.
I love that.
I do.
What's on the list?
Actually, one of them is interesting because it kind of relates to our conversation, but one of them doesn't like necessarily have to have a great relationship with their family, but like prioritizes family and thinks it's important.
Okay, I like that. Yeah.
So like that's really interesting because I feel like I've dated people that, you know, either haven't like had the best experience with their family or maybe they had a really great relationship with their family and like also really prioritize it. I think just family is really important to me. And like being proud of my family and like trying to cultivate a good relationship with my family is really essential for me. So having somebody else that also caters to that is good. And also if I want to start a family with this person, I feel like that's definitely a green flag.
Definitely.
Yeah. So that's one of them.
I love that.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah, but it's kind of sad whenever I read through it because I've like read it to my friends before and they're like, who hurt you? Because I'm like, does it put me down? Like, you know, just like things that like are obvious things that, you know, should be existent in a relationship. So it's interesting how we've all had our trials and tribulations with previous relationships and trauma from those experiences.
It'll be worth it at the end where you're in a healthy relationship and it checks mark all the husband lists that you have. Yeah, you'll find that person.
Yes, absolutely. Well, I am like so excited to go through this book.
Thank you. Please let me know what you think of it when you read it.
I feel like I'm going to realize that I've probably had a narcissist in my life at some point. So
maybe.
Yeah. So I feel like I'm going to find out some things. But I would love to ask you one more question.
Sure, please.
So if you were to drink a martini in a bikini, where would you be and what would you be drinking? It doesn't have to be alcoholic. It could be whatever you want.
Oh, it would definitely be alcoholic. It would definitely be alcohol, but probably somewhere, you know, by the Caribbean, anywhere there's water, the ocean, laying on the sand and having my drink. That would be ideal.
Just grounding.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's something that everybody can kind of take from is just ground in yourself and good things will come.
And be in the present moment.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, I would love for you to share how people can be connected, how they can stay in touch, how they can be friends, how they can purchase your book, all the good things. Anything exciting coming up?
Yeah, I'm actually going to Cayman Islands.
Okay.
I've never been. It's in the Caribbean, so I'm really looking forward to it. Speaking of like having an alcohol by the ocean, that's kind of what I was visualizing. So I'm excited
you're about to do
that.
It.
Yeah,
you're manifesting.
Yeah, I'm excited about that. People can find me. I'm on social media. I try to spread awareness as much as I can, so they can find me on TikTok. It's selflove_society. I have Instagram. I'm on YouTube. I'm kind of like all over the place. You know, I respond to my messages. You know, people just, they don't have to like set up a one-on-one. You know, I try to like help as many people as I can if they have questions. They can find my book on Amazon, on Barnes & Nobles. If they just like kind of Google it or go to my link tree on my Instagram, they can find it there.
That's amazing. Well, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you
so
for having
fun.
me. Yeah.
I feel like I learned a lot.
Yeah.
And I feel like everybody's going to get a lot out of this episode. So thank you so much.
Thanks
This
so
was
much for having
fun.
me.
Absolutely. Well, cheers.
Cheers.
They're salty element drinks.
Salty. As long as the men aren't salty.
Oh, yeah. I like that. We're going to have to end on that. But if you liked this episode, please feel free to like, rate, and subscribe to Martinis and Bikinis on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. I will love you forever, and I'll see you next week.